I feel like we can be flawed on our own, but we can't be flawed in public. AIs where people are going to express what it is they're feeling because they are not going to be judged. There's that fear of being flawed in front of other people that could cause me to procrastinate.
It took me 3 years to get comfortable enough to do a Facebook Live because I am flawed and I stumble on my words and I don't want to be judged. And oftentimes people don't even, you're judging yourself harder than the other person is judging.
Today's conversation is about the fear of being seen before we feel ready. Grace Redman is an author, entrepreneur, corporate success coach, and a podcaster who helps people move through fear, perfectionism, and self-doubt. In this episode, we talk about why so many of us wait to feel polished before we start, how judgment keeps us stuck, and what it takes to do the right thing anyway, even when we're still scared. Grace, how are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. I wonder how much hesitation in trusting yourself comes down to that perfectionism. It's when you imagine, like I could think about imagining what I want to do and who I want to be in the future. But typically when we picture these things, we picture the most optimum, perfect experience and outcome. You know, we don't think of our future in terms of tragedy for the most part when we're talking about our hopes and dreams. So for somebody, you know, like myself in a lot of ways, who's a perfectionist, how would you guide me?
First of all, I'm a perfectionist, recovering perfectionist. And how I would guide you is it's progress, not perfection. And our perfectionism actually is self-sabotage because it keeps us from moving forward oftentimes. When what is perfect, really? I mean, can we strive for excellence? Can we strive for high standards? Yes, but what's perfect?
I don't know what perfect is for a lot of people, but for me, it's like not failing, not looking back at the thing that I did and see flaws, see mistakes. But to your point, I also think about the other side. I think about the audience, you know, whether it's friends, family members, coworkers, etc. I always think about the audience as well. And I actually project what the audience must be thinking or saying after I do that thing or say that thing. So I think that's that perfectionism bundled up in what I'm thinking about. It's kind of like a lot of things that I can't control, but I still
Totally.
think about them.
I mean, how realistic is it to not have flaws? How realistic is it for, everything to, I mean, look, we had a challenge this morning with the camera. I've never had that happen. It made me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not perfect. Of course I'm not perfect. Flaws, challenges happen. Like, I think there's beauty in the flaws because it shows that we're human.
Yeah, but you know what, Grace? I feel like we can be flawed on our own, but we can't be flawed in public. I don't want to be
Why
flawed
not?
because you don't want to be flawed for other people to see because it's a level of vulnerability we're not willing to give up. Actually, I read this somewhere and I can't remember where it is, where I read this or the stats behind it specifically, but it talked about I think it was more of an image, but it showed like different generational images of somebody and their social circle. So it was like three different clips. And the first clip was like a person and like the entire community. Then the second clip was like a person and three or four people alongside them. And the third clip was the same person, modern generation, current time, and it was all the AI symbols, Cloud, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. So essentially this illustration is saying over time, we've replaced closeness, confidence from our community to very close circle of friends to now online. So when I read that, when I was looking at that illustration, that spoke to me because then it says, if I'm a person who's afraid to be flawed in front of other people, then I could put my flaws in this AI system and I don't have to worry about it being out in the world. Well, it will be out in the world in a digital format, but nobody will ever know it's me, right? But like that's where I feel people are. And I wouldn't say I'm to that degree, but yeah, there's that fear of being flawed in front of other people that could cause me to procrastinate. So I could see different outlets like AIs where people are going to express what it is they're feeling and what it is they're thinking, and ultimately be more vulnerable because they are not going to be judged.
Well, I feel you because believe it or not, it took me, many years ago, it took me 3 years to get comfortable enough to do a Facebook Live because I am flawed and I stumble on my words and I don't want to be judged. And 3 years is a long time to try to get over that fear. And finally, it's like you just have to start. And oftentimes people don't even, you're judging yourself harder than the other person is judging you. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, well, again, you can be discerning. It depends on the vulnerability. Now, vulnerability in sharing your deepest thoughts, I agree with you that I don't need to bring that out in public. But to be human, to just show, to start, to fail, to, have the first few episodes be terrible, how are we going to learn if we don't fail?
Mm-hmm.
And that might inspire someone else who's sitting back waiting for it to be perfect to say, wow, she started there, it wasn't really that good, but she did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get better and better. Like, I mean, I don't think Tiger Woods got out there and the first ball he hit, he made it.
Yeah.
I love the story about Michael Jordan. I just read it the other day, and he said, I lost this many games. I failed this many times, but I won this many times, and I missed this many times. I feel like it's okay for us we need to fail. And I think sometimes in our flaws is what helps us connect with other people.
That's a really good example. I feel like superstar athletes are really good examples. Maybe superstar anything, actors, celebrities, singers, etc. Because I feel like they put themselves out there, and
Yeah.
many times they fail. Um, Whether it's they've made an I guess, an insensitive comment that gets blown up in the media and in the news, and they have to apologize for it. If you're a player on a sports team, you make it to the largest stage and you lose, and you have to walk off that court, the grass, the ice, um, and know that you lost and publicly. Um, you have actors that have, many successful actors have had films that have bombed. Like I couldn't imagine being an actor, watching your movie be panned by critics, not raising any sort of money, um, not even meeting the budget halfway of what the movie cost, and wondering if your career in that moment is over. You know what I mean? It's like no matter what you did before, you're wondering in that very moment, is society sick of me? Is the audience sick of me? Am I no longer an asset? Like I can't imagine. But here's the thing, Grace, because I love how you mentioned MJ. Like him, like a George Clooney, like a Taylor Swift or Drake or whoever, there are moments where you have to face adversity, but it's how you
Yes.
respond to it. And because
100%.
all of them responded with this desire, this intensity, this obnoxious in some ways tenacity to
Yes.
remove any sort of like implication of this bad outcome and just say no, I'm continuing to move forward. That really separates some of these superstars, we're talking about superstars in their field,
Totally.
to people who are either just average or the people who fade after a disappointment or two. Like is that a gene though?
That's a great question. When I was 19 years old, I knew that there was dysfunction in my life. And on my own, that voice inside me led me to start therapy. I was only 19 years old. I did it in secret, nobody knew. I stayed with that same lady on and off for 25 years. 10 years ago, when I started the coaching side of the business, she said, Grace, I'm going to share something with you, and please don't be offended. When I met you when you were 19 years old, I felt that there was no hope left for you. And so, going back to what you're saying is when we believe in ourselves, anything is possible. And you know who I think is an incredible example of this? Jennifer Lopez.
Hmm.
Jennifer Lopez, I feel, is brilliant because she gets so criticized. Her life has been very public. I mean, 6 engagements, 4 marriages, and she just continues to show up. Like, she's not hiding from anyone.
Hmm.
She's not, she continues to come out and show up despite the judgment, despite the criticism. I think that that right there is the tenacity, and it's believing in yourself and trusting yourself.
There's such great examples, and I wonder, like somebody like a J Lo, because as soon as you mentioned her name, right off the bat, I think of this individual who's constantly in the news because of
Yeah,
some sort of like messed up relationship or engagement that didn't work out. But she continues to show up. She continues to act. She continues to perform. She continues to smile. Like, and I'm sure, like what we see on television and
totally.
social media is
Yeah,
curated. She's a human being.
totally.
I guarantee you, she's cried. I guarantee you, she's
Of course.
broke down and all that sort of stuff. But still, to put yourself out there on that public stage, and there's moments where I'm even thinking like, I have a vulnerable moment, Grace, and it's like I don't know if I want to go on my social media channel and talk about it or put it out there. And I
Totally. And that's okay.
yeah, and I wonder though, like, what right do I have when there's people out there doing it at a much larger scale, and they're bringing so much joy? Because at the end of the day, J Lo is about joy, right? The movies she does, the music she does, she's about spreading joy, the entertaining, the dancing, and all that sort of stuff. Like she's about bringing entertainment to people's lives at the end of the day. I'm sure she has fans, and I'm sure she has people who don't care about her, and I'm sure she has people who hate her. Regardless, she does what she does, and she does it big. So I wonder how many people like myself or like others who are not living that level of life of J Lo are almost putting obstacles in front of us, that don't need to be there because we're thinking about these outcomes that A, either will never happen, or B, nobody's really talking about or caring to.
For sure. For sure. Well, it's fear because, again, like you said, being a perfectionist, recovering perfectionist. Well, I mean, I'm still a perfectionist because I'm afraid. I'm scared. When I need to do new things, I'm scared. And I do it anyway because I know if I don't take that step, that I'm not going to get to the place I want to go. I am really passionate about my, coaching and speaking business. If I want to get to that next level, I have to do scary things, and I'm going to fail, and I'm going to have conversations that they're going to hang up and they're going to think to themselves, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
But how do we learn if we don't start?
When you say you're recovering perfectionist, take us through that.
Well, there was a time that I couldn't leave dishes in my kitchen sink. I don't care anymore. There was a time where, I wouldn't go out without makeup. I go out without makeup all the time. I mean, I'm dressed today for this podcast. Um, there was a time that I wouldn't make that phone call, and I would find a million different busy things to do because I don't want to make the phone call. I'm scared. And now I make the phone calls or I send the emails or I have the conversations, and I'm like, oh my God, that really sucked. And I'm like, yeah, it did suck. But how are you going to learn if you don't? It's a repetition. It's a repetition. We got to do it scared. And as entrepreneurs, if you're not okay doing it scared, we're not going to make it.
What got you through that though? Because how debilitating were those moments where you
Debilitating.
wanted to leave the dishes in the sink but you couldn't, or you wanted to put makeup on, things like that? Like how did you navigate those emotionally I'm sure, very tough moments.
Well, what goes back to what you're talking about? It's judgment. Like if someone came over and they saw dishes in the sink, they're gonna think I'm a bad wife, mother, person. Going out without makeup, and I've seen people like, "Oh, you look tired." I'm like, "Thank you." Um, I'm not good enough. If I don't have my makeup up, I'm not good enough. So for me, I get curious when I'm in that emotion and I feel it. I just get curious. I'm like, what does this mean, Grace? And 99.99% of the time, it means like I'm not feeling good enough or someone's going to judge me. And I've had to really lean into that. And if even if you judge me today, it's okay, um, because I know who I am and I'm learning. I'm flawed.
Hmm.
So it's easier said than done. Like, my calls with my clients, reaching out to prospective clients. I'm terrified. I'm still terrified 30 years later. But I remind myself, you know what? You're serving. You're providing value. So it's okay if you slipped up. That's how I do it.
I had a long time ago. I had somebody apply for a job with me in the place of my work, and I remember when I met them for the first time, I was really really shocked, really surprised in how vulnerable and open they were the very first time I met them. Now, to give you some context, I was looking for a salesperson. And if anybody knows in sales, you have to be very personable, very social, all that sort of good communicator, etc. This person, for the first time, met me as a manager and just opened up so much that I sat there and I'm like, I don't care how you even answer these interview questions. That's a formality. I'm hiring you because you seem to have absolutely no governor when it comes to how I may be perceiving you at this moment. Telling me that you want this job because it's going to reflect good on you on an ex boyfriend. Wow. Like, there's nothing professional about that
Wow.
statement. However,
Right.
and I'm not, and by no means this is a disclaimer. This was many years ago. This person was in their late teens, early 20s, I think. It was a very entry level position, so I'm not saying do this by any means, but, and I'm sure most people wouldn't. But, anyways, at that time in this retail type industry, it was very just like, wow, I was just really just astonished by how open this person was. And it got me thinking about how many people are either like that, where they could put themselves in a social environment and not care, not project what other people are thinking or what they may be thinking. Because I'm the opposite. You put me in that setting, I'm thinking about how that person is perceiving me. And because of that, I'm A, not being natural, B, not being comfortable, C, not trusting fully what I'm saying or what I'm doing because I'm so busy already being the criteria in that person's mind, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So I guess the goal of it is really cutting yourself off from being from projecting what you think that other person is saying. And that's the difficult thing to do. It's like for yourself when you're saying your identity is that you're a clean person. Let's say you're clean and tidy. Your identity now is
Totally.
being challenged when you say, I'm going to purposely leave dishes in the sink and have these people come over, and I'm going to
Mhm.
disconnect from the thought that they may have of an impression or a perception they may have of my tidiness. Like, that's tough to do.
Well, that's been my journey the last 10 years. I've completely shifted my identity because I grew up in an environment that conditioned you. You were conditioned to worry about what everyone said about you. I mean, my cousin and I used to tease our moms, like, your book of rules is this big, because you worried about what everyone said and everything was a problem. And that felt like a prison to me. And I'm sad for my younger self because I did. I worried about what everyone said. My clothes, my job. What would they say about my clothes? What would they say about my job? What would they say if I walked around with this boy? What would they say if, I didn't get into the right school? It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare living like that.
And thanks for explaining that, because obviously there's a deep rooted influence that made you
Yes.
think and believe the things that you did in your adult life. So somebody else listening who is going through this exact same thing, who says in that very moment what Grace says, that's me. That's my history, my past, my conditioning influencing how I move through the world today. What would you tell that person?
I mean, we get to take our power back. We have a choice to take our power back. And what I've learned is other people's judgment is is a perception of their beliefs and their insecurities. They're just projecting their belief system and their insecurities onto you. Now, also when I judge, um, because we all judge, I've learned, and I'm so grateful for this over the last 10 years. When a judgmental thought comes up, I flip it right away and I get curious. And I said, Grace, what are you making this mean about you? And it's always tied to my own beliefs. Um, I'll give you an example. Now I'm going to be vulnerable. From the time I was 10 years old, my mom put me on a diet because she thought I was too fat. And so I have this relationship with food. It's much healthier now. But when I see someone eating, like when I see a girl eating a fat, huge cheeseburger, onion rings, and french fries in one sitting, I'm like, damn, girl, should you be eating that? And I'm like, okay, that's a judgment. And the reason you're judging her is because that's your own insecurities. That's your own belief system and your story. So it has nothing to do with the girl, has everything to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I understand judgment, when someone judging me, I'm like, you're only judging a version of yourself.
That's right.
It's easier said than done.
That's right. Oh, Grace, thanks for sharing that. This is the time of the podcast where we go to the letter to your former self. So you're already talking a little bit about your younger self. So here you go.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, this actually aligns perfectly with what we were talking about. I want you to know that you're worthy no matter what. You don't need to prove your worth through achieving more, doing more, playing small, and following what society conditioned you to believe is true. Listen to your inner voice, the voice that whispers you can. The other voices that make you doubt yourself are just distractions. You're created in the image of our incredible Creator, and He brought you into this world to live a life of joy and abundance. The voices that tell you you aren't good enough are a lie. Know that there is no failure. Our failures are incredible learning opportunities and lead us towards our greatest wins. Take action from a place of fear, not faith. Faith in your gifts, faith in the process, and faith there is always a higher power at work on your behalf. Know that you're unconditionally loved, and hurt people hurt people. Never internalize the action or words of others because they're just projecting their own insecurities and fears. Worrying is just a waste of precious energy. Dream big and trust that what is meant for you will always unfold at the right time.
That's awesome. Grace, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. And thank you for being here today.